Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here again with another installment of my complete analysis of all 389 Bach chorales. Today we're looking at nun danket, alle, Gott, which translates to now all thank God. All in all, pretty straightforward chorale to analyze. We have some interesting form going on, as well as some interesting modulation structure to it, just because of the way the phrases are sort of piecemealed together as opposed to phrases that flow together more. But let's get right into the analysis. So 3 sharps in the key signature. We start and end on A major. I think it's safe to say that we are in the key of A major here. Start off with a 1 chord. Next beat we have another 1 chord again. No need to reanalyze it. Passing tone in the bass. And then we get a first inversion A major triad, so that's just a 6 chord. And then we have, I guess we kind of have like a passing, it's not really passing, but a chord where where it gets reinverted on a weak beat, or an and. It gets reinverted to root position. And then we get the same pattern again, but this time we get it on D major, right? The bass does the 1, 2, 3, 1 pattern in the bass, so we can analyze it the same way. It's just 4, 6, and I don't need to mark that as a non-chord tone. All that happens is sort of a reinversion of the chord here, and then we cadence on 1. That's a plagal cadence. It's exciting to see a plagal cadence in a major key. We've seen them in minor keys a little bit, but in a major key it's pretty exciting. And if we look ahead, we get a perfect authentic cadence in the key of A major. So we'll analyze in the key of A major still. Another A major triad after the rest. We then get E7 over G sharp. That is 5, 6, 5 in first inversion, and we expect that to go to 1, which it does. A, E, A, and C sharp. Then we get E, E, G sharp, and B. That's another E major triad with the passing 7th in the bass. C sharp, E, A, and C sharp. That is an A major triad in first inversion, and again we get another sort of fleeting 1 chord with this little embellishment also in the soprano. But right here for a brief moment the chord sort of feels like it's in root position, even though there's on the following 16th note after this 8th note it gets interrupted by D. We then get a big 5 chord here with a 4-3 suspension over the bass and some ornamentation going on as well, because it doesn't immediately go to G. The chord kind of turns into 7 right here, actually, before going to 1. Interesting. So, right after this, it sounds like a direct new phrase. It doesn't sound like there's a common chord modulation going on, but Bach is modulating to a nearby key. He is modulating to E. And similar, you might see some similarities between this phrase and the first phrase, because they're pretty much identical, except for this one occurs in the key of E major, rather than in the key of A major. So we start off with a 1 chord in the key of E major, passing tone in the inner voices. And then we have, again, another 1 chord, so passing tones in the lower voices this time. And then we get E major in first inversion here, so we can analyze that. And similar to the first phrase, the chord gets put back again in root position. I want to call it first position, but no, it's root position. Then we have an A major triad here, but we're in the key of E major now, so that's a 4 chord. Passing tone here, and then we get it in first inversion, and again, like so. It follows the exact same structure as the previous phrase, or the previous section's first phrase, but this time it just gets transposed to the key of E major, and then all that happens is the voices rotate, stay the same, and the bass leaps up an octave. So, comparable to the previous phrase, we get a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E major. Oh, fermatos did not make it into the score. Let me go ahead and write those in as well. This is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of E major. So we have a 1 chord, and then we have A, E, A, and C sharp. It's a 4 chord. Passing tones in the outer voices. C sharp, E, G, and E. That is a C sharp minor triad, or a 6 chord in root position in the key of E major. It kind of turns into a 6/4 briefly here as the G leaps down and the C sharp leaps down the G sharp and the bass. But then it goes to A, C sharp, F sharp, E. That is a 2 chord, or 2/7 chord actually in first inversions. That's 2/6/5. And it briefly turns to 7/5/3 here as the A leaps down to F sharp. I'll put that in parentheses. And then we have B, D, F sharp. Sorry, B, B, F sharp, and D sharp. It's just a 5 chord. The bass leaps down. And then we get 1. Perfect authentic cadence in the key of E major. And then we look at this phrase right here. It sort of continues the theme of direct modulations. It doesn't quite sound like a common chord modulation here. It almost sounds like we get tricked into the key of D major. But I'm going to analyze it in the key of B minor because the phrase, again, fermate, it's the plural, right? Fermate. Did not make it, and I'll go ahead and add it at the end as well. My apologies, I had a long day. So if we're in the key of B minor here, we have A, C sharp, A, and E. I was tempted to sort of keep it in the key of E here, but it really does sound like the bass is modulated after this this rest. So we're going to go ahead and just call it 7, and it goes where we expect it to. 7 goes to 3. You could, I guess, technically call this 5 of 3 as well, depending on how you look at it. They're both the same thing, but I don't think we have enough context to call this a dominant. But like I said, I think both analyses are valid because they're both really the same thing. Saying 5 of 3 or 7 is just 6 of one or half a dozen of another. We have some passing tones in the alto and the bass. And we then have B, C sharp, and E. That's not a tertian triad or really a tertian chord at all, so I think it's the A sharp we're looking at here. A sharp, C sharp, and E. That would be a 7 chord in root position, so at least that makes a little bit more sense. And then we have B, F sharp, C, and D. I think again this C sharp's a non-chord tone. It's creating a 9/8 suspension over the bass. So I do think that we're going to B minor here, which is our root position triad, which is where we would expect 7 to go. And we kind of have like a passing 6 here as it leaps up a minor third in the bass before going to E, G, B, and C sharp. That is a C sharp half diminished chord in first inversion, so that would be in the key of B minor 2/6/5 before very briefly going to a 5 chord, F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp, and then cadencing on 1. But we don't have B in the soprano here, we have D, so that'd be an imperfect authentic cadence. Interesting. It's an interesting phrase, how fleeting this 5 chord is. But really this 2/6/5 gesture that's going on right here is what sets up the imperfect authentic cadence. And in anticipation for the last cadence, we're going to modulate back to the key of A major. Again, this feels like its own entity, so I think it's a direct modulation. I have to start looking at these pieces, or these chorales that have a rest after the fermata a little bit more intently and listen if a modulation occurs. Sometimes one does, sometimes it doesn't. So this doesn't quite feel like a common chord modulation. So this I don't think is 7 turning into 1 in the key of A. I think it's just 1/6 in the key of A. It's just a A major triad over C sharp. And we have E, G sharp, and B. That's just a root position 5 chord. And then we would expect a 1 chord after that in some denomination. A, E, A, and C sharp, just a 1 chord. And we get some passing or non-chord tones occurring in the 3 of the voices. And then we get F sharp, A, and B. B, D, F sharp, and A. That would be a 2 chord. A B minor 7 chord over D, so that would be 2/6/5. And this turns very briefly into root position 7 chord on this beat. As these are chord tones. If you quickly glance at it, it would look like a non-chord tone because there are, eighth notes that are happening on metrically weak beats, but no, they're chord tones. And then we have E, B, G sharp, and B. Again, the 5th is doubled, which is interesting. It's a root position 5 chord. We have a passing tone in the soprano. The rest of the tones are chord tones. And we get cadence on 1. Perfect authentic cadence. All in all, pretty straightforward chorale. I'd say that if I learned anything from this is to, if something sounds like a direct modulation, it probably is, as opposed to trying to force the label of common chord modulation onto it. Sometimes it's hard to tell, especially if they happen like in the middle of a phrase, but here it's pretty clearly laid out. The phrases are separate. There's really no flowing from one phrase into the next. Each of the sections or each of the phrases has its own distinct placement in the chorale and a key to go along with it. So that's pretty cool. Quick analysis for today. Kind of a little reward after a long day of events and work. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed the analysis. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis as well, and take care.